Alrighty, so today it's time to do the preview in terms of the midweek action, and this midweek action is a little bit of a throwback to last year because remember how last year, where it feels like every single 3 days we have a full slate of MLS action, and in the middle of the week, there tends to be like 12 games that's going to be happening on Wednesday. Well, it's going to be the case once again for this midweek action, as there's going to be 12 games that is going to be taking place, and that means that there is going to be time where there could be like 7 or 8 games that is going to be happening at the same time. Now, I'm also going to be getting off work tomorrow at 5 o'clock, so I'll probably miss a couple of these early action, but in terms of the late game action, I'll definitely, of course, watch. But I'm going to also do what I did last year, where there is no way in the world I am doing a review literally when the final game is over. I'm not doing a review for all 12 games. Like, that would be just insane for me to try to do. So, instead, what I'm going to do with the review is that I'm going to once again split it, do the review after the last game that is going to be finished on Wednesday here on the board first, and then on Thursday I will do the review of the second board that I'm going to be putting up in terms of the late night action and also the West Coast games that is going to be happening. But let us actually begin in terms of the first game, and there's actually some good matchup in terms of these midweek action, even though none of them is going to be on national television. And one of them is New England versus Nashville. Now, on paper, this might not sound like a sexy matchup, but when you look at the standings, yeah, this is definitely a very, very top-heavy matchup. And in many ways, this probably might be the toughest opponent that New England is going to face, because they're facing against a Nashville team that just do not lose. Like, they have by far the fewest losses this season. Nobody in the league have lost no less than 3 games, and that they're the only team that have only suffered 1 loss this season at 6-9-1. While New England has a record 11-3-3, and they are leading the Supporters' Shield standing in MLS, which means they have the best record in MLS right now. This game will start at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff will not start until 7:08 p.m. local time. And Nashville, of course, is unbeaten in the last 8 games. Now, top assist leader for both of these teams for New England, unsurprisingly, Carlos Hill is the leading assist leader for New England, not just for the rest, but also in the entire league, as he has now had 15 assists so far this season, and he is definitely on verge of potentially breaking the record that I think Lucho Acosta actually set back in 2018, and I think it was like 22 or 23 assists, but he's definitely on point to do so, because he is literally almost averaging 1 assist per game. But after that, there is a bit of a drop-off. We got Tristanson with 4 assists, followed by Gustavo Bo, Tejan Buchanan, and DeJuan Jones, with all of them getting 3 assists. For Nashville, it's Randall Leal currently leads the team with 5 assists, followed by Daniel Lovitz and Hani Mukhtar with 4 assists. Then you've got Godoy and CJ Supran to finish off with 3 assists for Nashville SC. But like I said, this is going to be a very interesting game, and that New England so far this season, they have definitely shown a couple of times where even when they're facing adversity and even when they're down late, they can of course able to come back and get win. But that's also can be said about Nashville, and in some way I feel like both of these teams are known to be able to come back from a deficit late and able to grab all 3 points. It's just that I think New England has done it more than what Nashville has done it. But either way, this should be a very entertaining matchup. And it's also kind of a shame the fact that this game is going to start at 7 p.m. because most likely there's not going to be a lot of fans that's going to be watching this game at Gillette Stadium. And it sucks because, I feel like this season in terms of the Revs attendance, it's been okay, but it's still not the best. And especially with this game taking place in the middle of the week and it's taking place at Gillette Stadium, that there's not going to be a lot of people. Like, midweek games at Gillette Stadium is always the toughest draw, even if this is a matchup that is between two of the best team right now in the Eastern Conference. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be Columbus versus DC United. So Columbus, they of course lost 4-1 against NYCFC, and certainly want to forget about the last game, which was by far the worst game they played this season, and their record is now at 6-6-4. While for DC, They drew 0-0 to FC Cincinnati away, and that's despite the fact that in that game they actually went down to 9 men, and their record is now at 6-3-7, and are still staying in touching distance from Montreal in terms of the last spot of the playoffs in the East. This game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. Columbus, of course, in terms of the top assist leader, you got Pedro Santos, who surprisingly is actually leading the team with 3 assists, followed by Derek Etienne with 2 assists. And I actually got this wrong with Zaharian. He actually have 2 assists right now, not 3 as I put here on this board. But yeah, it's kind of weird that Zaharian is not leading the team in assists, as you would think that of course, was the case, but he's certainly leading the team right now in terms of the goal scoring. But then you got followed by Harrison Awful and Marlon Harrison with 1 assist. For DC, you got Julian Gresso with 3 assists to lead the team, followed by Moreno, Kamara, Naha, and also Moses Nyman with 2 assists in this game. And Moses Nyman, by the way, is one of the 2 players that got sent off in that game against FC Cincinnati for DC United, so he will not be available to play in this one. But yeah, for Columbus, they definitely want to get a bounce back win. They've kind of been in a relatively rough patch again in these last couple of games where they've been struggling to get wins. Now, that being said, they did get that 1-0 win against Atlanta, but then they also haven't really had as much success at home, and especially at their new stadium as we have seen before. I think they only have won 1 game so far at home in terms of the 3 or 4 home games that they have had so far this season. So yeah, they're going to looking to trying to maybe get a win against a DC team that has been okay on the road. I mean, they have times able to get wins on the road, but there are also times where they mostly suffer losses on the road. Though that being said, they're also trying to maybe get a win in this game so they can stay above Montreal or leapfrog Montreal for that last spot in the playoffs. And speaking of which, moving on in terms of the next game, is Montreal taking on Atlanta United. So Montreal currently have a record of 6-4-6, and as I mentioned, they're the last team right now in the playoffs if the playoffs would have started today. While for Atlanta, they have a record of 2-8-6, and this game will start at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Kickoff time of this game actually is going to be 7:38 p.m. local time. For Montreal, of course, they lost 2-1 to Inter Miami in their last game. While for Atlanta, well, unfortunately, now they have the proud honor, or I don't think it should be a proud honor, but more like the unfortunate honor of now having the longest winless run in MLS at 11 games, because after the Quakes were able to snap their 13-game winless run against the Seattle Sounders, it's now Atlanta, the one that has the longest winless run at 11 games. Now, top assist leader for Montreal, unsurprisingly, you got Georgi Mihailovic currently with 4 assists, followed by Kyoto with 4 assists. Then you got Bro Giaz, Lapinainen, and Samuel Piet with 2 assists for Montreal. For Atlanta United, you got Brooks Lennon and Jake Moreno with 3 assists, followed by Marcelino Moreno and Ezekiel Barco. Well, Marcelino Moreno with 2 assists, and then you got Barco and Bello with 1 assist for Atlanta United. And, certainly for Atlanta, they would definitely hope that they can finally end their winless run. I mean, they saw over this weekend where teams finally are able to end their winless run. They think maybe it's going to be their turn to do so. And against a Montreal team that has kind of been inconsistent in the last couple of games, they would definitely fancy themselves that this might finally be the case. And especially, they've been getting very close in terms of signing one of the biggest prospect back in South America, that is Thiago Almandra. They're hoping to maybe get a win in order that once he does come into the squad, they can maybe ride that momentum and get them back to the place that they're supposed to be, which is competing for the Eastern Conference ground, and instead being stuck near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. But now moving on in terms of the next match, and speaking of another team that are looking to try to get themselves back competing for the Eastern Conference, is Toronto FC and the Philadelphia Union. So the Union, as I mentioned, it's been a rough last couple of games for them, as they've only now won 1 game out of their last 7 games, and their record is 6-7-4. Now, despite the bad form that they've been in, they have had a lot of draws doing that form, and those draws kind of help them in terms of staying not just going through a free fall and just completely drop out of the playoff race, but they're currently in 5th place right now in the East. While for TFC, they have a record of 3-5-8. I believe they are 11th right now in the Eastern Conference, and their progress in terms of getting themselves back above the red line has been relatively slow, and that's a lot to do with the fact that they have been drawn a lot of games. The last game, they drew 1-1 to Nashville FC to now get their record to 3-5-8. This game will also start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff will not start until 7:38 p.m. local time. Top assist leader for the Union, Jameer Montero currently leads the team with 4 assists, followed by Kai Wagner with 3 assists. They got Liam Flock, Gastek, and Bizo with 2 assists to round out the top 5 for the Union. For Toronto, you got Bradley currently leads the team with 4 assists, followed by Jefferson Saltado also with 4 assists. Then you got Patrick Mullins, who somehow he is able to end up on the top assist leader with 3 assists. I mean, I have no idea that Patrick Mullins could be one of the guys that could be the influencer of this TFC team, but that's what we're living in right now. But then you got followed by Aro with 2 assists and Pozuelo. Only 2 assists so far this season. Now, granted, he's been spending a lot of time on the IR, and he's still on the IR right now, but it's kind of surprising the fact that Pozuelo only have 2 assists so far this season. Consider this is the guy that won the MVP last year, and again, yes, he's been on the IR a lot, but you still expect the fact that he should be getting more assists than the 2 that he currently have this season. It's been kind of a massive disappointment for him this year, having struggled to try to stay healthy this season, and it's also unsurprising that with him not being healthy throughout the season, TFC has really struggled, especially going forward on the attack. Now, that being said, I still feel like coming into this game, both of these teams desperately need a win, especially for the Union. They desperately need a win too, not just able to stop this bad run that they've been having in the last 7 games, but also they know the CONCACAF Champions League is about to restart again. Yes, for those of you that kind of forgot that the CONCACAF Champions League still happened, because, this season the CONCACAF Champions League is taking place throughout the year, and it's not going to be long before they have to play against Club America in the CONCACAF Champions League. Now, as I said before, the good news for this year is that it kind of feels like the table has now turned with the way that before it always seems like MLS team has the disadvantage because they're in early season mode and they're playing against Liga MX's team that's already in mid-season form. Well, it seems like the table has turned this year because now we're getting to a stage where Liga MX's season just started these past 2 weeks, and now you have MLS team that is truly in mid-season form. Now, unfortunately for the Union, because of how much they've been struggling so far this season, and depending on if Club America can really get themselves get going again, yeah, there could be a lot of concern for the Union right now. And keep in mind, they're the last team that is still alive in the CONCACAF Champions League, the last team that is pretty much carrying the flag for MLS this season. And if they lose the CONCACAF Champions League against Club America, which seems like that could be the case with the form that they're being in, it's another disappointing season for MLS team in the CONCACAF Champions League, and it once again just kind of shows you that, as much as I know people kind of got hyped the fact that 5 teams made it to the quarterfinal this season in CCL, it seems like once again that was just false hope, and that, yeah, maybe MLS team have not made progress yet and have not really get to the level of what Liga MX right now is so far in the battle between both of these leagues to see who is the better league in the CONCACAF region. But I guess there's always next year to see how that's going to go. But yeah, that's just kind of something I want to kind of mention besides this game that the Union are going to be facing against TFC. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be the Chicago Fire versus NYCFC. So this is a game between both teams that is in opposite direction. For Chicago, they're now struggling once again. They have now gone winless in their last 4 games to drop their record to 3-4-9. Well, for NYCFC, they have been red hot in the last 3 games with a record of 8-2-5, and they have won the last 3 games and outscored their opponent by a score of 10-1. This game will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff will not start until 7:08 p.m. local time. Top assist leader for the Chicago Fire, you got Alvaro Madron with 5 assists, followed by Boris Sekulic with 4 assists. Then you got Frankowski with 3 assists, and then you got Herberts with 2 assists, followed by Aliseda with 1 assist. For NYCFC, unsurprisingly, Maxi Morales leading the chart with 5 assists. Then you got Tati Castellanos with 4 assists, which is the same for Anton Tenholm, also getting 4 assists so far this season. Then you got Alfredo Morales with 3 assists, and Jesus Medina with 2 assists so far for NYCFC. And again, whenever you kind of have this kind of matchup where a team is ice cold versus a team that is red hot, you would most likely think the team that is red hot is going to get the win. But I got to remind you, this is MLS. Anything can happen. And from what we saw this weekend's action, I am not going to say anymore that, I think this specific team who is red hot right now is surely going to get the win, because it feels like every time I say that, the opposite, of course, has happened. And I definitely would apologize to the Seattle Sounders and Sporting KC fans, because I kind of said that in my preview back on Thursday, and look what happened. Both of them lost doing this weekend's action. So I'm not going to say NYCFC is definitely going to get the win in this game. All I'll say is they're going to be the favorites, but they got to be careful, because this is a Fire team that, again, this season the Fire has kind of been what it is throughout the previous season, where there could be a time where they could definitely catch some fire, no pun intended, by the way, but there could also be times where they are just ice cold, as they have been in the last 4 games. Now, moving on into the last game on this board is none other than the Red Bulls taking on FC Cincinnati. So for the Red Bulls, it was definitely heartbreak in the last game, because for majority of the game they were beating New England, and it looked like they were going to continue their impressive home record so far, and then they gave up 2 late goals to lose 3-2 against New England at home to drop their record to 5-3-7. Well, for FC Cincinnati, yeah, they're also been in a kind of a bad run themselves. Now gone winless in the last 6 games to drop the record to 3-5-7. But that being said, as I always said with FC Cincinnati, this is a team that, they tend to do well on the road this season. I mean, this season at home, that's not been the case, because they're still searching for their first win at their brand new stadium, that is TQO Stadium. But on the road this year, all 3 of their wins have came on the road. Now, that being said, they are going to be facing against a Red Bulls team that, besides the loss that they suffered at home last time, which was a very rare loss, because that was the only loss that they suffer, besides the opening day loss that they suffered against SKC. This is going to be a team that is going to definitely want to bounce back after that tough loss. This game, of course, will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:08 p.m. local time. I believe this is one of the 3 games that's going to be kicking off at the same time, because I think there's another game after this is going to be kicking off at the same time, and it's also the jersey that I'm wearing is one of the team that is going to be involved in the next game that I'm going to talk about. But going to this game, in terms of the top assist leader for the Red Bulls, you got Fabio currently leads the team with 6 assists, followed by Kamala with 4 assists. Then you got Caden Clark with 3 assists, and then you got round up with Sean Davis and Kyle Duncan with 1 assist. For FC Cincinnati, Lucho Acosta and Roland Matarrita leads the team with 3 assists, followed by Atanga with 2 assists, and the same goes with Cameron and Brenier, who, again, I wrote the wrong number. Brenier actually has 2 assists right now instead of the 3 I put here on the board. But yeah, this is a game that, certainly both teams would love to get a win to bounce back after some tough situation that they were in last week, with the Red Bulls blowing it late to lose New England and Cincinnati, despite the fact that they had 9 men at one point, or playing against a DC team that had 9 men at one point of the game. They still could not get their first ever win at TQL Stadium. But now I am going to switch boards and look at the last 6 games that's going to be happening in the busy Wednesday action of match week number 17 in terms of the midweek action. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is none other than the Florida Derby between Orlando City versus Inter Miami. And for the second video in a row, I am wearing Inter Miami. And the reason why I'm wearing Inter Miami isn't just because this is a match between a big match that, whenever I wear a jersey of a team that is in a preview or a review, it usually means that they have either done well this week to deserve me to wear a jersey, or it's a match that is kind of like the matchup of the week. And there's no doubt that this game is definitely going to be one that a lot of people will pay attention to. But another reason why I'm wearing Miami is because I have a good feeling they can pull off an upset in this game. Now, granted, Orlando City has been very good this season at home, and granted, in terms of these two Florida rivals, it's been kind of opposite fortune in terms of this season, with Orlando City being second in the Eastern Conference with an 8-4-4 record, and then of course won 3-2 against Atlanta United at home in their other big rivalry game that they were facing. But the reason why I kind of have some confidence that Miami can pull this off is because they finally won a game. They finally won 2-1 against Montreal in the last game, and I said this before, and I'm pretty much going to say it again. When you finally win a game after a long winless run, it just not only is such a relief, but it can really give you some momentum and believe that you can potentially go into the next game and get your second win in a row. And especially the fact that, with Orlando City, yes, they come off with a big win against Atlanta, and you would think that they might have momentum coming into this game. The opposite could be said true with the way that, whenever a big team come off of a big win, they maybe have a letdown knowing the fact that they're going to be playing against a team that is not doing well this season in the standings. Now, that being said, I'm probably not going to be correct in terms of making that statement, because Orlando City fans will say that this is a big game for them against Inter Miami because they want to win the series against their hated Florida rival, which actually I don't even know if you're an Orlando City fans or if you're an Inter Miami fan. Let me know in the comments below. Do you actually hate each other? I mean, I'm assuming it's a heated rivalry, because anytime when you have a battle between two teams in the same state, that there's going to be some rivalry in terms of it. And the other thing I will also say with Inter Miami, a chance that they could win this game, is the last game they came close against Orlando City. Like they took a 1-0 lead into the second half, and it looked like they were going to pull off the upset, and then they of course gave up those 2 late goals. So if they don't do that against Orlando City in this one, they might actually have a shot to do so. But that being said, in terms of the top assist leader for both of these teams, for Orlando City, you got Mauricio Pereira, unsurprisingly leading the team with 7 assists, followed by Nani with 5 assists. Then you got Tesho Akindele and Chris Mueller with 4 assists, and then you follow by Benji Michel currently with 3 assists. For Inter Miami, so far this season, they have 2 guys currently with 3 assists, and that is Gregor and Lewis Morgan, followed by the Higuain brothers, who both have 2 assists so far this season. And then you got Jay Chapman rounding the top 5 with 1 assist for Inter Miami. But like I said, if I had to pick a game where there could be an upset that could potentially happen, this is the one that I think it is going to be the case. Now, watch how when this game is over and when I do the review of this game, I'm gonna have to apologize to Miami fans, because I maybe have just jinxed them, and when they do lose big, then yeah, I definitely will have to apologize to Miami fans, because I've just hyped them up for this one, and then they just kind of got absolutely destroyed by Orlando City. But fingers crossed that's not going to be happening, because again, at least from what throughout this rivalry, there has never really been a blowout throughout this rivalry. I think throughout this rivalry, there's only been 1 goal that has decided the game throughout these last couple of meetings. So yeah, I don't expect this is going to be a blowout. I expect this should be another very closely contested Florida derby. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, and another interstate rivalry that is going to happen. But this is kind of a historic interstate rivalry, because this is the first ever Copa Tejas that is going to be happening between Austin FC versus Houston Dynamo. For those of you that don't know what the Copa Tejas is, it's basically a new rivalry that all 3 Texas teams basically created. And it's kind of like the Cascadia Cup, where, with Seattle, Portland, and Vancouver coming up with this competition, and at the end of the competition, whoever is going to be leading in the Cascadia Cup standing will basically win the Cascadia Cup. This is the same thing with the Copa Tejas, where whoever Texas team is going to be leading at the end of the standings, they're going to be winning the Copa Tejas Cup. And in many ways, if you look at these Texas team, with how bad all 3 of them has been this season, and all 3 of them being below the red line in the Western Conference, I think this is pretty much a trophy that they're definitely going to take seriously, because most likely all 3 of these teams might not actually make it to the playoffs this season, which is why this game I expect is going to be hotly contested between Austin FC and the Houston Dynamo. And I'm also expecting that Q2 Stadium is going to be absolute rocking. Like, it was already rocking before, long before this game much anticipated is going to happen. I expect it's going to be the same thing, and it is definitely going to be very, loud for this first ever Copa Tijas that we're going to see. Now, for Austin FC, unfortunately, despite the fact that the fans will definitely be up for this game, they'll also hope that their team can finally score a goal, because it's been 300 minutes since they have last scored a goal, and scoring has been a big issue so far this season for Austin FC. Well, for the Houston Dynamo, they're also having their problem, as they have now gone winless in 10 games, and they currently have the second longest winless run behind Atlanta United in terms of the winless streak. But if Atlanta does win this week and the Dynamo does not win, then they unfortunately have the dubious honor to have the longest winless run so far in the league. Now, in terms of the top assist leader for Austin FC, you got Jared Stroud currently leads the team with 3 assists, followed by Dominguez with 2 assists, and the same with Kalmanich with 2 assists. Then you got Cascante and Gallagher with 1 assist for Austin FC. For the Houston Dynamo, you got Tyler Pasher and Fafa Pico with 3 assists to lead the team, followed by Joe Corona, Lundquist, and Rodriguez with 2 assists apiece between all 3 of these players. But nevertheless, I'm very excited to see this game, and this is definitely going to be a game along with the Florida Cup that I am going to be paying attention very closely. Now, the difficult thing about this is that since there is also other games that is going to be taking place, it's going to be really hard to try to keep an eye on both of these games at the same time. But nevertheless, I'm going to try my best, and there's definitely going to be some more notes that when I do the review of all these games, that these 2 games is going to receive, because I'm definitely going to be paying a really close attention in terms of these 2 interstate rivalry that's going to be happening in this midweek. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be the Seattle Sounders versus FC Dallas. So the Sounders are pretty much having a problem that almost every team in MLS have to face this season, which is they're facing adversity. They are going through a bit of an adversity and going through a bit of a rough patch, because they have lost 3 out of their last 4 games after starting the season on a record run of 13 games unbeaten to start the season. Now, they are going to be playing against an FC Dallas team that, they obviously is not having a good season with a 4-5-7 record, and near the bottom of the Western Conference. But the thing is, for Dallas, what's interesting about this team is that when they do play against big opponent or play against team that is near the top part of the standings, they're able to get a win. I mean, they beat New England earlier this season at home after they had a long winless run. They were able to beat the Galaxy 4-0 not long after. And then last week, in a game where I thought for sure that they were going to lose to SKC, and they haven't even got a single point on the road heading into this season, they got their first point and their first wins at home or on the road in that game against SKC. So, yeah, something tells me FC Dallas, they're kind of a giant slayer specialist in terms of this season. And I also kind of feel like maybe this is just a sense where a lot of teams might have underestimated FC Dallas this season, especially the big team, where they think that maybe that's a team that is not doing well so far for this season, and they can maybe take it easy, and then they just walk straight into the trap of FC Dallas. And I will also maybe say that, for Dallas, as bad as this season has been, they're starting to slowly turn around, and a lot of that has to do with a lot of their youngsters finally started to perform the way that they is, and especially with the revelation of Ricardo Pepi, and also probably one of their most important player in Paxton Pomykal started to become healthy for this team. There is no doubt that this team is started to slowly get themselves back into playoff contention. In fact, if you look at the West, besides the bottom 2 team in the West, the playoff race is still pretty tight. I mean, Dallas, I've started looking at the standing, I think they're only 4 points off of the playoff standing. So they're, for a team that I said last week, I thought they were very close to pretty much being done. Or actually, I said that I think 2 weeks ago when they play against the Galaxy. But for a team that I said they were pretty much looking like they're just going to call it a season and just kind of like in see you next season mode, all of a sudden they're now in a situation where they are actually pretty close in touching distance of potentially sneak into the playoffs. Now, that being said, they are, of course, facing against the Sounders, who, despite the fact that they lost 3 out of their last 4 games, the Sounders have really owned Dallas in the last couple of meetings. But that being said, I said the same thing about the Quakes last game, and look what happened to the Sounders. But anyway, in terms of the top assist leader for both of these teams, you got Seattle currently having João Paulo with the top assist leader with 5 assists, followed by Montreal with 3 assists, Rodon with 3 assists, and that's Christian Rodon with 3 assists, not Alex Rodon. Followed by Brad Smith also with 3 assists, and Will Bruin rounds out the top 5 with 2 assists. For FC Dallas, you got Ryan Hollinshead with 4 assists, followed by Jesus Ferreira with 3 assists. Then you got Brian Acosta, Paxton Palmago, and Andres Ricarte with 2 assists to round off for FC Dallas in this game. And again, if there is another game where I maybe could say that there could be an upset that could happen, this might be the one to do so, because the Sounders, they're going through a rough patch. Although a lot of that has to do with them missing a lot of guys, and knowing the fact that now the Gold Cup is over, and they're definitely missing a couple of very key players that they miss in the Gold Cup, like Christian Rodon. I have a feeling they might be have a chance to get themselves back to the good form that they had in the beginning of the season. But now moving on into the next match is going to be the Galaxy versus RSL. And one thing I also forgot to mention is that there is a lot of games that is going to be happening in terms of the nightcap action. So if you are in the East Coast and you want to watch every single MLS game, prepare to basically stay up late in terms of this midweek action, because we have 4 games that is going to be kicking off after 10 p.m. Eastern, and 3 of them is going to kick off after 10:30 p.m. Eastern. And that, of course, the first one is the Galaxy taking on RSL, with the Galaxy having a 9-1-6 record after they got a much-needed 4-1 win against the Portland Timbers. For RSL, they drew 0-0 in the game against the Houston Dynamo to drop their record to 5-6-4. In terms of the top assist leader, you got Julian Araujo and Samuel Greiser currently leading the team with 4 assists, followed by Sasha Klushton and Sebastian Lletget and Brendan Vasquez. Victor Vasquez. Brendan Vasquez plays for FC Cincinnati, not for FC Cincinnati, not for the LA Galaxy, but Victor Vasquez, who's a long-time TFC player and pretty much a TFC legend, now playing for the Galaxy with 3 assists so far this year. For RSL, you got Aaron Herrera currently leads the team with 6 assists, followed by Damir Krylak with 5 assists. Then you got Albert Rusnak with 4 assists, Rubio Rubin with 3 assists, and Andrew Brody to round off the list with 2 assists for RSL this season. And we'll see whether or not if the Galaxy can continue that momentum that they have against RSL. I'm also kind of interested to see when exactly they're going to get Chicharito back in this team, because it's been a while since Chicharito has went down with that injury during the warm-up in the game against SKC, and we have not heard a lot about when exactly his return is going to be. And in some way, I think Galaxy fans are hoping that that's going to be sooner rather than later, because, so far this team, and a lot of that has to be with the fact that there's this guy called Ryan Revolution has really been carrying the slack and have been just a goal scorer just kind of out of nowhere that has really helped this Galaxy team in the past couple of games. I think Galaxy fans are still are going to pretty much say that they still do miss Chicharito so much in this game, and their hope that they can have him back in this team, although we'll see whether or not if that's going to be the case in this game against RSL. But now moving on into the next game on this free-game late West Coast kind of action is LAFC versus Sporting KC. So this normally is one of the bigger match of the year, and that the last time both of these teams face off against each other was on national television. Now, this one, of course, is not on national television because, as I mentioned, all these games is not going to be on national television. And most of the time when you have midweek kind of MLS action, there's not a lot of games that are usually going to be on national television. Like, you might get lucky if one of them is going to be on national television in the middle of the week. But if there is one that could have been on national television, this could, of course, be the case. Now, that can also maybe be said with these two interstate rivalry, but this one has a good case too, because this is always a matchup between two teams that a lot of people are saying maybe they can, of course, compete for the Western Conference crown. And yes, I know there's still some people that says LAFC can compete the Western Conference crown, and I know who you are looking at, you MLS media person. But coming into this game for LAFC, they have a record of 6-5-5, and LAFC was actually the only team to not play in the weekend's action, so they won the bye week sweepstake from from the weekend's action, although they did play last week in the midweek action, and they drew 2-2 against Minnesota in that one. For SKC, yeah, they suffer a 2-1 loss against FC Dallas at home to drop their record to 9-3-4, and it was also kind of a missed opportunity for them, not only getting upset at home, but also they had a chance to catch the Sounders, and I think they're actually pretty much in touching distance of potentially catching the Sounders for that top spot in the Western Conference, and they miss a big opportunity to do so in the last game. Now, in terms of top assist leader for this game, oh, by the way, if you haven't know yet, this game will start at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff time will start at 7:38 p.m. local time. But top assist leader for LAFC, unsurprisingly, Carlos Vela currently leads the team with the most assists with 5 assists, followed by Atuesta with 4 assists. They got Safuntes with 3 assists, followed by Blessing, and Segura rounds up the team with 2 assists. For SKC, you got Johnny Russell and Daniel Showing and Kyrie Shelton all with 4 assists to lead the team, followed by Gianluca Busio with 3 assists, and Gadi Kinda to round up the list with 2 assists for SKC. And, coming into this game, I'm pretty sure the team that really wants to win this game is LAFC, because, they want to prove people, including myself, that, so far this season, the thing that makes me think that LAFC might not be an MLS Cup contender is they cannot beat these teams that is in the playoff position. Well, if they can maybe do so in this game against SKC, and knowing the fact that I think SKC is going to get their main squad back, and especially getting their most lethal goal scorer in Alan Polito back in this team, this is going to be a good test for LAFC, and if they can, of course, get the victory in this one, then maybe they can send the message to the rest of the league that, how you say that we can't beat good teams and beat playoff teams? We just did that against SKC in this one, but we shall see whether or not if that is going to be the case. But now moving on into the last game on this board, and the last game in terms of the busy midweek action is none other than the Portland Timbers versus the San Jose Earthquakes. Now, normally, I say that this is an automatic win for the Portland Timbers, because anytime when the Quakes play against the Timbers, especially at Providence Park, it's an automatic loss or an automatic drop points for the Quakes, because they have never beaten the Timbers at Providence Park. But look what happened last week when I said that the Quakes were probably going to suffer an automatic loss against the Sounders at Lumen's Field, and that the Quakes were able to get a win and end their 13-game winless run against the last team I thought that they would end at that. Maybe there's a chance that they could actually do the unthinkable once again and finally becoming a team that a Quakes team that no other Quakes team in ever since, or actually no other Quakes team has ever done, which is getting all 3 points against the Timbers at Providence Park. And in some way, as crazy as that also could maybe sound, it's not actually that unrealistic, adding to the fact that the Timbers have also been in a relatively rough patch in the last couple of games, as they, of course, lost 4-1 against the Galaxy in the last game, absolutely getting destroyed on the road, and their record is now at 6-1-8, while the Quakes' record is at 4-5-7. And as I mentioned, this game will also start at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff will be 7:38 p.m. local time. Top assist leader for both of these teams. For the Timbers, you got Marvin Larea, Diego Valeri, and Jose Van Reken with 3 assists, followed by Diego Chara. I believe, is it? I actually need to double check. Is it Diego Chara or Jimmy Chara? I think it's Jimmy Chara, the one that currently has 2 assists this season, followed by Felipe Mora with 2 assists to round out the top 5 assist leader for the Timbers. For the Quakes, in terms of their top 5 assist leader, you got Keikau and Espinoza tied with 4 assists, followed by Fierro, Salinas, who have 2 assists this season, and you got a bunch of guys that currently have 1 assist. Lucho Piqueras is one of those players that has 1 assist for the Quakes. And again, I'm gonna say what I said earlier, where I'm not just going to say that the Timbers are gonna get the win in this game, and that because if I say that, the Quakes are probably going to surprise me again and get the victory and really pull another unthinkable thing, which is beating 2 Cascadia team on the road. Like, if you would have told me that could be a possibility a couple of weeks ago, I think you would be absolutely nuts. And, you know, not to mention the fact that not only the Quakes did win 1-0 against the Sounders to snap their 13-game winless run, but they have now gone unbeaten in their last 5 games. And, you know, it's been a while since I've known a San Jose Earthquakes team to have gone unbeaten that long into the run. But, you know, this is, again, it's going to be a tough task. And if history have shown before where it seems like it's always a graveyard whenever the Quakes play against the Timbers on the road, maybe this is when the unbeaten run comes to an end. Or maybe the fact that somehow they'll shock the world again by getting their first ever victory against the Timbers on the road, and now extend their unbeaten run to 6 games and get even closer now to potentially making a playoff run, which I also kind of feel like maybe as much as that's kind of like a shock the world kind of statement, maybe this is also a time where, you know, I talked about how the Mateus Almeida kind of experience where you could have one point of the season where they are literally rock bottom, but all of a sudden out of nowhere they're now in the up chart and really charging up the standings. I feel like this is where the Quakes are right now, and this is where the timeline we are in right now with Almeida, where, you know, this team, after they suffer that rock bottom moment by losing 5-0 to Orlando and losing 3-1 to the Galaxy at home in the Cali Clasico, out of nowhere in July they have now spurred all the way up. Well, I wouldn't say spur all the way up, because if you look at the standings, I think they're still in 11th place in the West, but they're getting very close in terms of getting themselves above the red line. And again, if they can win this game against the Timbers, and depending on what other resort, they can close that gap even closer if that is going to be the case. But that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all 6 of these games on this board, and also the other 6 games, and in total, the 12 games that's going to be happening in terms of the busy action of MLS. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Oh, also make sure you guys leave a comment below your prediction for all 12 of these games in terms of the busy Wednesday action. But yeah, until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.